Hey, what's up? Today we're making a multi-server welcome system using Discord.js, and this is how it's going to work. We have a total of 3 slash commands. 2 of them are just for configuring the welcome system, and 1 is just for testing everything. Just for simulating a user join. When configuring the bot, you can choose where to send the message and what message to send. We also have a bunch of placeholders, so the message is more personalized. Once a user joins your server, it'll send the message to the configured channel. Plain and simple. So first we need to connect to MongoDB, and to do that we're going to be using Mongoose. So let's go ahead and install it using npm install mongoose and hit enter. So with Mongoose installed, let's go ahead and set up our connection string inside our .env file, and I'm going to call this MongoDB_URI and set this to my MongoDB connection string. Of course, I'm not exactly going to show you my connection string because it's sensitive information, but whatever your connection string is, go ahead and paste it over here. So with our connection string set, let's go ahead and connect to our MongoDB database. And to do that, inside our index.js, before we log into our bot using client.login, we're going to go ahead and connect to the database. So to do that, let's go ahead and import Mongoose. So I'm going to say const mongoose require and mongoose. So with Mongoose imported, let's go ahead and connect to the database using mongoose.connect and process.env.mongodb URI, like so. And because the .connect method returns a promise, we can use .then. And inside this function, we can go ahead and put our client.login, like so. But before this, I'm going to say console.log, and I'll say connected to database. We can save this file. And if I start my bot using node source index.js, it's going to say connected to database and then logged into our bot, of course. Now I'm getting some warnings saying that I have a command marked with dev only, and that is my ping command, which is marked as dev only. And basically what it's saying is that I have no dev guild IDs or dev user IDs set up. So let's go ahead and do that. If you're not using CommandKit, then you don't have to follow this. But since I am using CommandKit as my command handler, I can go ahead and set a dev guild IDs. And this is going to be an array of the development server IDs that you want your bot to basically treat as dev servers. So I can go to Discord, copy my server ID, and paste it over here. The error also mentioned that we have to add either dev user IDs or dev role IDs. So to do that, we can say dev user IDs. I'm not going to be setting roles, just the user IDs is totally fine. And I'm going to be setting this to my own personal user ID. And I'm going to paste it over here like so. And now if I restart the bot, we should not be getting any warnings, and our bot should load all the commands in our development server. Okay, so now let's go ahead and move on to our schemas. So the schema is basically going to be the structure of our data that is going to live within our MongoDB database. So to do that, let's go ahead and create a models folder, or you can call this schema. I just like to call this models. And inside this, we have to create a new model, and this is going to be welcome channel.js. So first, let's go ahead and start by importing everything that we need from Mongoose. So I'm going to say const require and mongoose. And from Mongoose, we're going to go ahead and destructure the schema class and the model function. Now we can go ahead and define our welcome channel schema by saying const welcome channel schema and set this to a new instance of the schema class. And inside this, we're going to go ahead and pass in an object, which is going to define the structure of our document. So basically in MongoDB, we store stuff as documents, and those documents look like JSON objects. And this is where we're going to be defining that structure. So the first thing that we need is the server ID, and we're going to be storing that as the guild ID. And for our guild ID, the type has to be of string, and this must be required. So we're going to set this to required and set the property to true. Next, we also need the channel ID. This is the channel ID where the welcome message is going to be sent. So we can go ahead and set this to type string required true. We're also going to go ahead and set a unique to true. That way the same channel cannot be configured more than once. Now, the reason why we're not using unique inside the guild ID is because one server can have multiple welcome channels. That's something that I am setting. However, if you want one server to only have one welcome channel, then feel free to add this property, which is going to limit one server to only one welcome channel. I don't really want that, so I'm going to go ahead and comment this out. So our next property is the custom message, and this will also have a type of string. However, this is not required, so I'm going to be setting the default value to null. So if the custom message is not provided, we're going to go ahead and set our own generic message. Now, one more thing that I'm going to do is pass in another object over here, which sets the timestamps to true. And basically what timestamps does is it creates two new properties after this called created at and updated at. However, this is totally optional. If you don't want the extra timestamps, then feel free to completely remove this. However, I'm very used to this, so I'm going to stick with it anyway. Now let's go ahead and export the schema so that we can import it within other files. So I'm going to say module.exports and export using the model function. And the first argument for this model function is a string, and this string is going to be the name of our model. So I'm going to be setting this to welcome channel. And then the second argument is the schema itself. So this is going to be welcome channel schema. We can go ahead and save this file. And now we can start using this within other files and make changes to our database. So let's go ahead and create a command. And for this, I'm going to create a folder inside the commands folder. And I'm going to call this welcomer, like so. This is basically going to act as the category of my command. And inside this, I'm going to create a file called setup_welcome_channel.js. Now I am setting this with hyphens in the name. However, you can use subcommands. I do believe I have a video tutorial on that, which I'll have linked down below. However, the thing about subcommands is it tends to get really messy all within a single file. So that's really why I'm using different files. However, the choice is yours. You can use subcommands if you want. So depending on your command handler, you're going to have to define the structure of your command somehow. For the command handler that I am using, it's called CommandKit. For that, we need to create a variable called data and set this to the structure of our command. So we have a slash command for which I'm going to be using this slash command builder class. So I'm going to say new slash command builder and import this from Discord.js. So make sure this line at the top exists. So I'm going to start adding a bunch of methods to this slash command builder class. So I'm going to say set name, and I'm going to set this to setup welcome channel. I'm also going to go ahead and set a description. So I'm going to say set description, and the description is going to be set up a channel to send welcome messages to. Next, we don't want this command to be registered within direct messages. So I'm going to say set DM permission to false, like so. And we also don't want this command to be visible to people who do not have the permission of administrator. You can change this to your liking, but I think administrator is fine because only admins would usually configure a bot like this. So I'm going to say set default member permission. And for this, we have to import something else from Discord.js. And this is permission flag bits. So we can use permission flag bits inside our set default member permission method. And this is going to be the permission itself, which in this case is administrator. Next, let's go ahead and deal with all our slash command options. So in this case, we need first of all the channel option where we want to configure our welcome channel. So I'm going to say add channel option, and we're going to get the option as the parameter. And let's go ahead and now configure our option. So I'm going to set the option name using set name, and this is going to be the name of the option. In this case, I'm just going to set this to target channel like so. And then we have set description. And this is going to be the channel to get welcome messages in. Now there's one slight problem with this channel option, and that's that it's covering every single channel type. Now that's obviously not a problem in itself. The problem is welcome channels can only be set to text channels or announcement channels. So we somehow have to configure our option to only accept text channels and announcement channels. So to do that, we can use the method called add channel types. And for this, our import is going to be channel type from Discord.js. So make sure you go ahead and import that as well. So the channel type over here is going to be guild text. and that's a regular text channel. However, there's also the announcement channel, which is pretty much a text channel as well, but it's treated differently. So we have to add that as well. So I'm going to say channel type dot guild announcement. Finally, we have to ensure that this option is always available. So we're going to set this to required. So to do that, we can say set required to true, like so. Next, we're going to have a string option, and this is going to be our custom message. So let's go ahead and add the option using add string option. And once again, we can go ahead and configure our option using option.setName. And the name of the option this time is custom message. Once again, feel free to name your option whatever you want it to be. We also have to set the description. So I'm going to say set description. And in this case, I'm not going to say something like your custom message or something like that. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to define all the placeholders that the user can use. So I'm going to say something like templates. I think you can even call this placeholders, but that's totally up to you. So our placeholders are going to be mention member, and this is going to be basically pinging a member. So the user can use this in their custom message, and it's going to be replaced with a mention of the person who joined the server. We also have username, and then we also have server name, like so. Now you're not limited to only these placeholders. You can obviously add your own placeholders. It's really easy to work with these, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So unlike our first option, this is not required. This is optional. So we're going to leave this over here as it is. So our command structure is done, and this data variable is ready to go. So what we can do is we can export this using module.exports, and we have to export an object from this file. And in this object, we have to pass in the data property. And this is automatically going to be set to this data variable because they both share the same name. Next, we have to go ahead and set up our run function. So I'm going to say async function run. And this function is going to be called every time this setup welcome channel message is executed inside of Discord. So we can go ahead and first of all set up a try catch block just in case there's any errors. And if there is an error, I'm going to go ahead and console log, and I'll say error in and then file name. And in a new line, I'm going to go ahead and pass in the actual error itself. Inside the try block, we're going to have all the logic for our command. But before we write anything, I'm just going to go ahead and export this alongside our data property inside this object right here. Now, again, this depends on your command handler. If you are using CommandKit like I am, this is the naming convention and the export convention that I am using. However, this heavily depends on the command handler that you're using. So anyway, inside this run function, we can go ahead and destructure interaction. Now, I'm not getting any IntelliSense over here, and that's because we're not using TypeScript. So to fix that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this comment right here. It's totally optional. It doesn't really change the result of your code, but it just makes development easier. So now if I do control space, you can see that we have all this IntelliSense. We have interaction handler and our client. We just need the interaction object, which is the result of running this / command. So let's go ahead and now deal with this command. And first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get both of these options. So I'm going to say const target channel and set this to interaction.options.getChannel. And in here, we have to pass in the name of the option, which in this case is target channel. So we can pass this right here like so. Next, we need to go ahead and get our custom message. So I'm going to say const custom message. And this is going to be interaction.options.getString this time. And the name of the option, which in this case is custom message. So let's go ahead and paste it like so. Now below this point, we're going to be querying our database and whatnot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to defer a reply so that inside Discord, it looks like our bot is thinking. So I'm going to say await interaction.defer reply. And I'm going to pass in an object which says ephemeral to true. And basically what ephemeral does is it only shows the response of the bot to the person who executed the command. So it's going to be hidden from the rest of the users in the server. Also, because we want to query our database, we have to import our schema. So I'm going to say const welcome channel schema equals to require. And we're going to go up to our models folder and get our welcome channel. So underneath this, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be checking if a record exists in the database with the same server ID and the same target channel ID. Obviously, if it exists, it's a duplicate, and we're going to tell the user that there's already a record in the database with the same information. So what we can do is, first of all, we can set up a query. So I'm going to say const query, and this is going to be an object. And this object is going to have a guild ID, and this guild ID must match our welcome channel schema guild ID. So I'm going to set this to guild ID, and this guild ID is going to be interaction.guildID. Now we know for a fact guild ID is going to be a valid string, and the reason for this is because we have set DM permission to false, which is going to ensure that this command will always be executed inside of a server. After guild ID, we need to set channel ID, and this is going to be target channel, the channel that the person mentioned in the slash command, .id, like so. Now let's go ahead and check if this thing exists within our database. So I'm going to say const channel exists in DB, which is basically database. And we're going to set this to await welcome channel schema dot exists. And this is a method. And inside this, we can go ahead and pass in our query object like so. You can even go ahead and pass in the object directly like this. But the reason why I'm not doing it like this is because this query is going to be reused a few times. So I'm just making a reusable variable. So I'm just going to set this back to query like so. So anyway, if this channel exists in the database, we're going to tell the user. So I'm going to say if channel exists in DB, then we're going to follow up with our interaction. So I'm going to say interaction.followup. And here I'll be saying this channel has already been configured for welcome messages. Then we can go ahead and return like so. The code below this is going to run if we want to configure a new channel. So for that, we can say const new welcome channel, and we're going to set this to new welcome channel schema. And inside this, we're going to pass in an object. And here we're going to go ahead and pass in all of these properties, which are inside of the query. And because we don't want to redefine this, or we don't want to rewrite this, we can just go ahead and spread this query object inside here like so. And we can also pass in our custom message, which may or may not exist. If I hover over it, you can see that this can either be a string or null. So that's perfect. We can just go ahead and put it inside here like so. So now we can go ahead and save this new welcome channel to our database. So I'm going to say new welcome channel dot save. And because this method returns a promise, we have dot then. And this function is going to be called after save has been resolved, or we will have a catch just in case there is an error. So first, let's go ahead and deal with our catch block. In this case, if there's an error, I'm just going to go ahead and say interaction.followup, and I'm going to say database error. Please try again in a moment. Of course, I also want to console log what went wrong. So I'm going to say console.log. And in here, I'm going to say db error in. And then I'm going to go ahead and pass in the file name with __ file name. And in a new line, I'm going to go ahead and pass in the actual error itself. So that's our catch block. Inside the dot then method, we can say interaction.followup. And we can basically just let the user know that their configuration was a success. So we're going to say configured. And we're going to mention the channel that they configured, which is the target channel. And we can say configured the target channel to receive welcome messages. And that's basically it. Our setup welcome channel has been configured. Let's go ahead and test this out real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and restart my bot. So inside Discord, I'm going to try to run setup welcome channel. And you can already see target channel is required. And in here, we can only set text channels or announcement channels. I don't really have any announcement channels in the server, so I can't demonstrate it. But let's go ahead and configure our welcome channel to this welcome text channel. And you can see that the custom message is optional. However, we're going to set it anyway. I'm going to set this to welcome. And the first placeholder that I'm going to use is mention member. So I'm going to say mention member like so. And just so we can test that all the placeholders are working, I'm just going to say your username is, and set the username placeholder. Obviously, it doesn't make sense to use the placeholders like this. I'm just doing this for testing purposes. Finally, I'm going to say you joined the server and then server name. So let's go ahead and send this. And now it's going to say configured welcome channel to receive welcome messages. If I try to run this command once again, you'll notice that I have the target channel set to this same welcome channel. So if I try to run it again, it's going to say this channel has already been configured for welcome messages. So that's also working perfectly fine. Now let's go ahead and move on to removing the welcome channel. This is also pretty easy. So let's go ahead and create a file inside our welcomer folder, inside the commands folder. And this is going to be remove welcome channel.js. So just like our setup welcome channel, we can go ahead and define the structure of our command using const data. And I'm going to set this to a new instance of the /command builder class. And this class is imported from Discord.js. Now we can go ahead and set the name of this command. And the name is going to be remove welcome channel. We can also set the description using set description. And this is going to be remove a welcome channel. Once again, we don't want this command to be accessible from direct messages. So I'm going to set DM permission to false. We also want this command to only be visible to people with administrator permissions. So I'm going to say set default member permissions. And this is going to be permission flag bits, which is once again imported from Discord.js. And the permission in this case is administrator, like so. And this command only has a single option, which is going to be of a channel type. So I'm going to say add channel option. And now let's go ahead and configure this option. So I'm going to say option.setName. And the name of this option is target channel once again. The description is going to be the channel to remove welcome messages from. Then we're going to go ahead and add channel types once again. This channel type is going to be imported from Discord.js, like so. And these channel types are only going to be text channels or announcement channels. So I'm going to say guild text or channel type dot guild announcement. We also want this option to be required. So I'm going to say set required to true, like so. That's the structure of our command. So let's go ahead and export this as an object. So I'm going to say module.exports and export an object. And this will have the data property. It'll also have the run function, which we still have not defined. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to say async function run. And this function is going to have a try catch block. Once again, the catch block is very, very simple. It's going to have a console log, which is going to be error in, and then the name of the file. So file name. And then in a new line, we're going to go ahead and show the actual error itself. Inside the try block, we're obviously going to have all our logic. Now from the parameters, we can go ahead and destructure the interaction object. We're not getting IntelliSense, so we can fix that with that one comment that we had earlier. So I can paste it like so. So now if I come here and press Command space, yes, we do get some IntelliSense. We only really need the interaction object. So let's go ahead and deal with that. Also, since we're going to be modifying the data from our database, we have to import the schema that is required. So in this case, that's the welcome channel schema. And this is going to be from the models folder. So models welcome channel, like so. So inside the try block, let's go ahead and first fetch our option, which is the target channel option. So I'm going to say const target channel. And this is going to be interaction.options.getChannel. And we can pass in the name of the option, which is target channel in this case. And once again, we're going to go ahead and defer a reply so that it looks like our bot is thinking. So I'm going to say await interaction.defer reply and pass in ephemeral and set this to true. So only the person running the command can see the response. So now let's go ahead and set up our query once again. This is going to be the same thing. So I'm going to say const query, and this is going to be an object. And I can say guild ID. And this is going to be interaction.guildID. And then we have the channel ID, channel ID. And this is going to be target channel. which is the channel from our option, .id. And now we can use this query to check if this data exists within the database. So I'm going to say const channel exists in DB, and this is going to be await welcome channel schema dot exists, and we can pass in the query. You can already notice a lot of the similarities with the first command that we made. So now if this channel does not exist within the database, we're going to tell the user, so if not channel exists in database, then we're going to follow up with our interaction. So I'm going to say interaction.followup, and I'll say that channel has not been configured for welcome messages, and make sure to return right after. So what if the channel exists in the database? Well, we have to go ahead and delete it. So we can do that using welcome channel schema dot find one and delete. And in here, we need to pass in our query. And because this returns a promise, we can use .then, and we can also use .catch. So inside our .then, I'm going to follow up with our interaction, and I'm going to say removed target channel from receiving welcome messages. And inside the catch block, there's an error. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow up with the interaction anyway, and we're going to say database error, please try again in a moment. And for development purposes, let's go ahead and console log what the actual error was by saying db error in and then file name. And in a new line, we can go ahead and pass in the error itself. So that's our command. I can go ahead and save the file. Let's go ahead and test this out. So I'm going to restart my bot. So inside Discord, if you remember, we've already configured this welcome channel. So just for testing, I'm going to be using this other channel that does not exist within the database. So I'm going to say remove welcome channel, and I'm going to be setting this to goodbye like so. And over here, it's going to say that channel has not been configured for welcome messages. And that's true. So now let's go ahead and try to do this once again, but with a channel that has been configured for welcome messages. In this case, it is this welcome channel, which I can set and try to run. And now it's going to say removed welcome channel from receiving welcome messages. If I try to run this one more time, it's going to say that channel has not been configured for welcome messages. So our commands are working perfectly fine. I'm going to go ahead and quickly set up the channel once again. So I'm going to set this to welcome. The custom message is going to be hi, mention member. I'm going to say your username is username, and the server name is server name, like so. So we've configured our welcome channel to receive welcome messages. Now, one thing you may be confused about is what if we delete, let's say, this goodbye channel, which was already configured to receive welcome messages. Because now if we try to run remove welcome channel, we cannot actually set that goodbye channel that does not exist anymore. You don't really have to worry about that, because the next time somebody joins the server and our bot tries to send a message to that channel, if it finds that the channel does not exist, it will delete that record from the database completely. So that is exactly what we're going to be working on right now. This is going to be our events. So let's go ahead and set up a new event, and this is going to be for whenever a member joins the server. In this case, the name of the event is guildMemberAdd. Now, if you don't really have an event handler like I do, then what you can do is you can use your client object, and you can use the client.on method. And in here, you can set the name of the event, which is guildMemberAdd, like so. And you can basically do the same things like I'm about to do. Obviously, I don't need this because I do have an event handler, which is CommandKit. So let's just move on with this folder structure. So I'm going to create a new file inside this, which is going to be a function that will be called whenever this event is triggered. This file name doesn't really matter with CommandKit. So I'm going to say send welcome message.js. And each event file by default needs to export a function. So I'm going to say module.exports and export in arrow function, like so. And once again, I'm going to have a try catch block. Inside the catch, I'm going to have a console log, which says error in __ file name. In a new line, we're going to have the error itself. So before we get to our try block, we first have to make this function asynchronous because we're going to be using a wait inside of it. And we can also set our parameters, which is guildMember, because this is actually the object that we get when the guildMemberAdd event is triggered. Finally, we also need to import our welcome channel schema. So I'm going to say const welcome channel schema and set this to require, go up to the models folder and import welcome channel. Now I actually want some IntelliSense on this guildMember object because if I try to do guildMember dot, we don't really have anything. So to fix that, I'm going to add this comment right here. And to set the type, we're going to go ahead and import Discord.js. And from Discord.js, the type is going to be guildMember like so. So now if we try guildMember dot, you can see that we have a bunch of properties and methods that we otherwise wouldn't have. Once again, this is totally optional. It does not affect the result of your code. It's just there for better development experience. So with that said, let's go ahead and now work on the logic of our event function. So I'm going to say if guildMember.user.bot. So if the person who joined was a bot, we can return and basically just stop this function right here. We don't want to move on if a bot joined the server because we don't want to welcome them. That's totally up to you though. If you want to welcome bots, feel free to do so. I think it's kind of useless. So let's go ahead and now move on to getting all our welcome configurations. So as I mentioned earlier, one server can have multiple welcome channels. So for that, we need to import basically all of the welcome configurations for a single server. So to do that, I'm going to say const welcome configs, and this is going to be await welcome channel schema dot find. And in here, we can go ahead and pass in our query. So the query is going to be an object. And for that, we need to pass in the guild ID, which is the server ID. And the server ID is going to be from this guild member object. So I'm going to say guildMember.guild.id like so. So that's really all we need inside the query. Let's go ahead and check what we get with this welcome configs. So I'm going to say if not welcome configs.length. And basically what this means is if the array that we received from welcome configs is an empty array, then we can go ahead and return and do nothing. That's because there's no configurations for this server. Also, if your bot is big, I don't really recommend doing this. If you can implement caching, I highly recommend you do that. It will save you a lot of database calls. I have made a video where I introduced caching for your Discord bot, which I'll have linked down below in case you're interested. However, since my bot is just for testing, this is totally fine. Also, if your bot is in not a lot of servers, this is also totally fine. So anyway, now we have an array of all these welcome configurations. So now we can loop over these using for const welcome config of welcome configs. So now let's go ahead and fetch the target channel where we're supposed to send the welcome message. So to do that, we can say const target channel. And to get this channel, we need to access it using this guild object right here. So I'm going to say guildMember.guild.channels.cache.get. And we can pass in welcome config.channel ID like so. However, in this case, we're actually using the cache, which may or may not exist. So we can also go ahead and optionally fetch the data by making an API call to the Discord API using await guildMember.guild.channels.fetch. And we can go ahead and pass in welcome config.channel ID like so. However, if this target channel does not exist, it means the channel has been deleted from Discord completely. So what we can do is we can say if not target channel, then we can go ahead and delete this record from the database. So I'm going to say welcome channel schema dot find one and delete. And in here, I'm going to pass in the guild ID, which is going to be guildMember.guild.id. And we're also going to pass in the channel ID, which is going to be welcome config.channel ID. If there's an error, what I'm going to do is I'm going to catch the error, and I'm not going to do anything about it because that's a database error. And the next time the person joins, we're going to try this once again, and it's most likely to delete in that case. However, if you do want to, you can go ahead and log the error over here. That's totally up to you. I'm not going to do that. So now let's move on and set our custom message and send it to that channel. So I'm going to say const custom message. And this is going to be welcome config.custom message. And if you remember, custom message may or may not exist. So if I go to the schema, you can see custom message has a type of string, but by default, it is set to null. So a user can or cannot provide a custom message, and we basically have to set a generic message. In that case, if this custom message does not exist, we're going to use an OR operator, and we're going to have the custom message, which is going to be, hey, username. And note how we're using the same placeholders as we were before. You can use the same placeholders over here as well. And I'm going to add this emoji right here, and I'm going to say welcome to server name. So now we have a custom message set up. However, this custom message still has placeholders. We have to replace these placeholders with actual data. So to do that, let's go ahead and define a welcome message, which will do just that. So this welcome message is going to be our custom message. So this message with placeholders, and we can start replacing these placeholders. So I'm going to say dot replace. And first of all, we're going to go ahead and replace mention member. And we'll replace mention member with a ping. And this ping is going to be guildMember.id. And that's basically how you ping a user on Discord using their user ID. We're also going to go ahead and replace the username. So I'm going to say replace username like so. And we're going to replace it with guildMember.user.username. We're also going to go ahead and replace the server name using server name. And we'll replace it with guildMember.guild.name. Now you're not limited to these placeholders. As I mentioned earlier, you can add your own custom placeholders. One that just came to mind is a server member count. And you can do that with replace member count. You can set this to whatever placeholder you want it to be. And you can basically replace this with guildMember.guild.approximate member count. And I'm not exactly sure what this returns. It returns a number. So I think we can go ahead and stringify this using string. So really, you're not limited. You can add as many placeholders as you want there to be. I'm going to go ahead and remove this because it really wasn't part of the tutorial. And now we can go ahead and send this message to the channel. So I'm going to say target channel.send, and we can send this custom welcome message. However, if your bot does not have enough permissions within that channel, we need to catch the error. Once again, I'm not actually doing anything about this. You can go ahead and maybe delete the data from the database. That's totally up to you. However, in my case, I'm just going to go ahead and do nothing if the bot does not have enough permissions or in case there's any other sort of error. So this code should technically work, but I don't really have an alt account to test this with to rejoin the server over and over again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a command, which I'm also going to have the source code for linked down below. So go ahead and copy that source code and create a file inside your commands folder. And I'm going to call this simulatejoin.js. And inside this, just go ahead and paste the command. And basically what this command does is it basically simulates a member joining, and it has a user option which you can optionally provide to set as the member who joined the server. So if you want to go to the logic of the code, it's really simple. We're using the client object to emit the guildMemberAdd event where we're passing in a member object. Just go ahead and save this, and we can now restart our bot. So I'm going to say node source index.js. And this command is actually a developer command, which is why we have two developer commands. As you can see, inside options, we have dev only set to true. This right here is actually a command kit feature, so your command handler may or may not have this. So anyway, let's go ahead and test this out. So I'm going to say simulate join. As you can see, we have an optional option. So if I set the target user to maybe a bot, so I'm going to say not under control, it's going to say simulated join, but you're going to notice that we did not get any message inside of this channel. So the reason for that is we chose a bot. If you remember in our code, we're basically saying if the person that we chose is a bot, or if the person who joined is a bot, then we're not going to do anything about that. So what we're going to do is we're going to try this once again. And this time I'm not going to add any user, because if I don't add a user, it's going to default to my personal account. So if I send this, it's going to say simulated join. And now we have a message inside this welcome channel. It's going to say hi, and it's going to mention me. It's going to say your username is my username. And then the server name is this server name right here. So our welcome system is working perfectly fine. You can add multiple welcome channels and it will work perfectly fine as well. So that's about it. If you need any help, be sure to join my Discord and ask in the respective help channels. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.